And we're live. We are definitely live this time. I'm not even gonna check. You can check if you
I'm
want.
gonna check.
yeah,
You actually want me to check?
yeah, I do, but we gotta play it cool. So, hello, Habibis, Habibtis, and Habib and Bees. Exchained is live again after a week of hiatus due to sickness and other kinds of sicknesses. Uh, but we're back um, with some energy. But we have a lot to talk about, like actually so much to talk about. As you can tell by the title that I completely forgot, it has a lot to do with normalization and
You forgot the
insanity.
title. The
Yeah,
title is "The End of the Genocide?" Question mark.
yeah.
Normalization and liberalism. I'm
Okay.
still sick.
As
Great.
you can tell, some people are still sick. I will not point fingers, but and or yani, yeah, it's Rachel. So, um, what's going
Okay,
on?
let's kick off.
Let's kick it off.
Let's dive right in. So
So, yeah,
I think when we were kind of formulating what we wanted to talk about, there are a few really distinct things, and every week we've been doing this kind of um, rundown of what's happened and developments in Gaza and the West Bank. And I think that obviously makes a lot of sense to do. But there are also some deeper topics that kind of underlie and underline all of these developments that we wanted to go into today.
yeah,
And the first thing, which came to mind, I mean, comes to mind regularly through organizing, is the topic of normalization. And normalization really takes a lot of different forms. There are two specific forms that I think we have in mind to discuss today. The first is liberalism within the movement, so the normalization of Zionism, of Israel's atrocities, of genocide, of the mainstream media being complicit. I mean, from A to Z, uh, anything that doesn't really call out in a principled way what is going on and why it's going on, and what the source of all of that is what I would refer to as normalization. And I think we're seeing an increase in that. The farther we get away from the real freshness and urgency of the genocide now that we're post ceasefire, um, it's a bit easier for people to look back on everything that's happened and have this approach and have this mindset of we were always against this. And I think we're seeing that more and more. And for me, that is normalization because it ignores the fact that all of these people have been sitting around and ignoring or denying the reality of the genocide, the reality of the occupation of Zionism, of all of these things. So I think it's important to call that out and analyze it, not in a sectarian way. It's not like, oh, people are arriving to the movement now, then like fuck them if they weren't here the whole time. Obviously, that's not the case. But there are reasons why there are like aspects of problematic to that,
yeah.
and people should be held accountable, and the movement should hold people accountable because we need that in order to make sure that we're effective going forward. Again, not in like a vicious or sectarian way, but that's the first thing we wanted to talk about.
Um, yeah, I think there's, I mean, inherently, like just on a regular basis, seeing those scenes that were coming out of Gaza, seeing the genocide being live streamed on your phone every day, has led to it kind of being normalized to so many people, and specifically if you're not every day engaged in why this is happening, it looks to you like, oh, brown people, brown children die, like as if it's a genetic thing. They just die through bombs. Um, I think this is one of the forms that normalization takes, but I think what we want to talk about today is the normalization um, as you said, like people coming late to the movement is not the problem. You can come late to the movement and still come with an open mind saying, hey, listen, I was wrong. I now see how it was a systematic erasure of a people's, instead of coming right now and saying like, yeah, war is ugly, and like
It's a
we've had
shame what's happening on both sides. The
yeah,
loss of every life is
or
equally ba ba ba.
not even this, not even this liberal shit. We've had people come and say like, yeah, these children in Gaza, do you think we can adopt them? Like it's not, this is not, we don't, children in Gaza do not want a German white guy to adopt them, and then they come here, and then they get also like in them gets they get like um the what's it called, the German guilt gets
Yeah,
implanted
right.
into them, and then they're like, oh yeah, we do not need this, we need, if they have to grow up in their own communities, their communities that know how to raise them, that keep their culture intact.
But this is the
And
imposition of white Western values and morality. And the only way of being able to relate to anything going on in any of these circumstances and any of these people is by controlling them and by taming them.
yeah, yeah, like it's white saviorism on
Yeah.
crack. Like this is how white saviorism like is portrayed, is even is like lived through even the most well-intentioned whitey out there. And I say whitey not as a derogatory term, but
Mhm.
it just like yeah. But
Whatever.
you know what I mean, like it's not, even the well-intentioned are like, okay, how can we save these children? You can save these children by making sure that their future in their communities is safe, making sure that they go to sleep without being bombed, without needing the aid that the UN or other organization or even Germany is donating out of the goodwill of their hearts. Like um, to understand the dynamic of like how colonialism works, it makes you, the person profiting from colonialism, it makes you think that you are doing good to the people that are colonized, even though you are literally contributing to their death.
Yeah,
It's
I think that's a really key point though. Like none of this is about doing good. It's about countering the bad. And that's a responsibility. It's saviorism versus solidarity.
yeah,
It's charity versus mutual aid. It's understanding what yeah, what you must contribute. And this is
yeah,
not, this is also why when you have this narrative around, okay, well, you need to, for us, for lefties, for people who are active in the movement, who organize, who already have a political consciousness, this whole, well, you have to approach people gently and people are going to be turned off by your approaching them XYZ way. If they're going to be turned off by the way that I'm approaching them to call them up to the responsibility of standing against genocide, then they were never going to be any value to the movement. Or rather, I was never going to be able to say anything or do anything to incite them to be of value to the movement. That has to come from people within themselves. That has to come from this initiative of understanding I have something to learn. I have to sit down. I have to learn some humility. I have to be humble about learning how to not just perform solidarity, but actually be in solidarity.
yeah. And also to unlearn, like the understanding that you need to unlearn a lot to get to the point where you can learn. And it's a long way, like it's not an easy thing. Mm,
I think for me, this also has to do with a broader um, philosophy, which for me has changed a lot over the past couple years. Um, in response to my environment, and I'm curious as to what, well, I know kind of where you're at on a lot of this because we've talked about it, but I'm curious to have this conversation. Um, for a long time, we were talking about breaking out of the isolation of the movement. We need a mass movement. We need to connect with all areas of society, or else we're going to be all on our own. We're not going to be able to counter the repression. We're not going to be able to make a difference. And for me, this has really, really changed over the past, specifically the past few months, but this has been an evolving consciousness for me. Um, in starting to formulate to myself and in my own organizing approach, I don't need 50,000 people. Like, I don't need 50,000 white Germans to join me on the street to like make a ring around me when I'm demonstrating. There are a lot of other things, a lot of other ways of building campaigns and like building kind of long term infrastructure for creating change that don't come from having tens or hundreds of thousands of people the way that the people are kind of going out to the so-called anti-fascist rallies. Those people go, they play their techno, and then they go back to like brunch. That's really something else than what we're talking about. Very disciplined, very structured political organizing. And I think there are scenarios, there are interventions that require huge numbers of people. But I think understanding that we really do, as not individuals, but as smaller collectives, really have organizing power and power to create change. For me, that makes it easier and more obvious that we need to hold people accountable for how they're coming into the movement, because they have the, I don't need them to be a warm body here. I need them to be committed, and I need them to be disciplined.
Yeah.
um and there are ways of doing that gently, but it also, it gives you a different value for who's in the space. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we do have a tendency. I think both approaches have their flaws. Let's say we do have a tendency as leftists to not engage in the sectarianism as we understand it. It's just that we tend to live in our bubbles and expect the bubble to expand on its own, and in many cases it does, um, but also in many cases it doesn't. And so I think what our responsibility is, yes, we need to approach these people who are demonstrating against fascism. We also need to let them know that they have been silent throughout the last 15 months. They've been silent throughout the last 76 years, while, like, at least for the past 3 years, we have literally had someone who is a self-proclaimed homophobic fascist
Right.
in the Israeli government, controlling the lives of millions of Palestinians. And this is something that you have been silent about. Um, it's not only that you have been silent about, as in, yeah, I don't know, things happen in Sudan, and I'm we're not part of it, it's far away from me. No, you've been silent about it, as in you have ignored your complicity regarding this topic. And in many cases, like Omas gegen Rechts and other wildly,
I-
like, actually insane groups, you have you have we've had Omas gegen Rechts, which sounds so awesome. I think my grandma would also love that. Uh, saying literally, they posted on their whatever feed. They're like, "Oh yeah, there isn't a genocide in Gaza. There is no ethnic
there's no
cleansing.
hunger. They said
There's
there's no
Yeah, they said
hunger.
there." And you know the funny thing is, they said there's no hunger because they saw Palestinians eat. And it's first off, it's so insanely dehumanizing that if somebody sees you eating, they conclude that your entire starving uh, group people are then not hungry. Like,
Oh,
it's
they're completely psycho. But
yeah,
this is an interesting point to me, because well, first of all, kind of our orientation within the broader anti-fascist movement is a bit well, it's not necessarily the same as our strategies for the Palestine movement, because it's a matter of what we're disturbing, like what we're disrupting, and what kind of power we're collectivizing domestically versus how we're impacting kind of global politics, and our ability to stop a genocide. So there are different tactics, but I think it's a worthwhile question to ask. What are you expecting to accomplish, let's say for the Palestine movement, by going to these types of anti-fascist demos and approaching people who are happy to be raving to techno in between, like their Bloody Marys on a Sunday afternoon, and saying, well, you aren't real anti-fascist because you didn't show up for the Palestine movement. They don't care, because because they don't care and they weren't going to care. And in that respect, like, I mean, I'm not saying that you're saying that, but I think like for me a shift has been in a group of 10 people who are organized and who trust each other and who have a concept and a strategy for an intervention and for a long-term campaign. We actually have an ability to drive change and to create impact for the Palestine movement. I don't need hundreds of like I don't need to spend the time educating hundreds of anti-fascists necessarily,
Yeah,
who call themselves that but maybe aren't that. Anyway, I mean, it's someone just wrote this in the chat. That's the
yeah,
difference between people wanting to do good and people wanting to be told that they're doing good. And I
yeah,
think that's an exceptional comment, an exceptional summary of all of this.
yeah,
And I think it's a really, really valid um, discussion point, not to get into an argument with no end. Like, this is, for me, this is really important because it does inform necessarily our organizing approaches.
yeah. I mean, righteous anarchy. This is literally the Black Lives Matter. I put a black square on my Instagram. Look at me. I am so solidary. I'm in such insane solidarity with the black people. Um, it's inherently very performative, and it's because it has no goal. The goal is the performance of the goal is being seen. If the goal is being seen, then you only need to perform.
Right.
If the goal is actually liberation for black people, then you need to act on top of performing. You can perform, but you need to act beyond that. And this is what's completely missing. I think this is how liberalism, like even capitalism co-opts, like we've had the Black Lives Matter movement co-opted by Pepsi with Kendall Jenner standing in front of the cop, and she gave him a Coke, and everything was good. A Pepsi. The guy was like, "Oh yeah, sure. Now I will not beat up black people." Like it's it is inherently just performative, and this performative nature leaves it very open to exploitation by capitalist um, companies and like corporations and shit like that. So it's yeah,
That's a really good point. It's the yeah, it is. This lack of principle leaves it open to exploitation by capitalists and by corporations.
yeah,
And I mean, you can see that so clearly in the Black Lives Matter um, movement and in the I mean the whole Pride Parade nonsense. I
oh yeah,
mean, it was whitewashed. So I'm aware of what that looks like and what that could look like for the Palestine movement. Um, and I mean, I think we have a roadmap for what it does look like. We've seen it happen over and
yeah,
over again.
yeah,
And I think holding people accountable for that, because this is a case where we desperately need really principled, really, disciplined organizers in order to make a difference.
yeah.
It's important to kind of see it in this light.
I mean, as you've said, like there is a roadmap. At some point, we will have like Palestinian representation that is so, like, how the Germans say, lush, that is so weak and powerless, and is just happy about being the representation. It does not care about the principles that should like guide its actions. And we will get to that, and we are seeing a little bit of development in that direction. um it's just, I think we will need to look. We might not get to that as well, because even like this mere measly representation can also mean a threat to the, especially in the West, to the right wing and the rise of the AFD and the Elon Musk autism salute. Apparently now it's I saw a meme today. It said, "Oh, look at so many autistic people in the 30s in Germany." Like, it's so crazy. It's so crazy. Just yeah, we're moving in a very bad direction, which is why you need to watch Exchange so you can stay informed and listen to principled people who will not who will who refuse to be just plain cutoffs of what a Palestinian or what a Jew should look like. So
But I think also, like, so I mean, I'm laughing, but what also comes to mind is you calling me, I think it was before we started, like the first time we did this, and you talked about like one of our principles being to like always hold each other accountable
yeah,
if we're for whatever reason, like if we're off in a different direction, or if we, I forget what the actual example was, but it was just, it was something about like holding each other accountable and our comradeship and our connection to
yeah,
our political principles and like humility. And
mhm,
I really, that really meant something to me. It means something to me. I feel like building this kind of block of one in the space between us is something that um like I'm not saying that performatively, talking about that on exchange, that you know everyone should do that. I'm holding myself and I'm holding you, and you're holding me to that as well.
yeah,
And I think it's really important and it's sustainable, and that's a blueprint that I feel proud of.
yeah. This is why exchange is the best out there. We're not the only, we are only the best. It's a saying in Arabic.
Oh, it's
Yeah, لسنا الوحيدين لكننا الأفضل. But yeah.
I love
Uh,
it. I love
so
it.
yeah, I want to move on to something. Um, yeah, something that I put in the description. It's like how insanity is literally is dominating the political sphere, i.e., Trump, and how insanity is not only dominating it, it's like it's moving the goalpost of what's normal to say. Like we've had Trump literally on TV as a policy saying like, "Oh no, we're gonna take Gaza. Like, take it from who?" They're like, "Oh, are we gonna buy it?" They're like, "No, buy it from who?" Because Palestinians don't count as humans. To like, it's so we moved away from the subtle acceptance and racism of Biden and Harris to the in your face racism of, hey, these people are not these beings are not human. We can take their land if we
Yeah.
want to without we don't have to ask them. We get like, oh yeah, we're gonna build beach properties. What the fuck? It's insane. And the proposal was the complete ethnic cleansing, like a literal war crime was the proposal by the most powerful man on the planet. And of course with like some people like Scholz and Baerbock saying like, no, Gaza is for Palestinians, and they're like literally posing with like the words Gaza is for Palestinians, and they can only and stuff like that, which makes me think like if
We
I
see
did not
you, war criminals. You're not fooling anybody
yeah, if
just
I
because
did
you're
not know
comparing
anything,
yourself to an
like if I
open fascist.
yeah, if I did not know anything, I would be like, oh my god, she's saying the right words. She must be against the genocide. It's not like literally Baerbock and Scholz were sending like 30% of the weapons, and they clearly admitted it. Like it's not like they were trying to hide it. It was just like, hey, we are sending weapons, and
Do you
Israel's
think people
using the
actually believe that though? Like,
depends on but okay, there are two options. Either people believe it and are just woke up like yesterday, or people don't believe it and vote for the Greens because she performatively said that Gazans are humans, which is back to again, if your goal is the performance, then the policy doesn't matter. And she said the words. It's like a magic spell, you know?
Look, I mean, I guess if your goal is the performance, that you're not voting with Gaza as a deciding factor anyway,
That
so
is
I guess it
true.
doesn't really matter to people
That
like
is
that
true. Yeah.
regardless. So I guess the question is not really the one worth asking. But I mean, I think very important to point out that uh, capitalists and mainstream political parties love this. They love this opportunity to be made to look reasonable and
Same.
sane based on someone else's. I mean, whether or not you want to call him a fascist, there's analysis around that. Like, I mean, I think I'm perfectly happy to call like his policies are ethnic cleansing, and he supports and connects to fascists. And Elon Musk's Elon, we know exactly what that was, bro. If you haven't watched the most recent Macklemore music video, you can see us
Hi.
getting beaten up in Berlin in that video, by the way.
Oh,
Um,
we made
yeah,
it? Are we famous?
yeah, we're
Yeah.
famous.
Look,
um,
Mama, I'm on TV.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, regardless of what you want to call it, I mean, this kind of juxtaposition between the real absolute lunacy of Trump and of fascism, which people will look at and say, first of all, how could it actually be that bad? They're being so obvious about it. They're being so transparent about it. It then leaves this beautiful void for the rest of the parties who have, committed and called for and denied genocide in whatever different forms over 16 months to come forward and look like saviors and heroes, which is also why you see this insane shift or hurdle to the right, because you have the rest of the parties, like in Germany, for instance, but also in the United States, like Biden committed the whole genocide with slightly different branding, but the exact same policies.
Yeah.
And they make it possible for these groups like the AfD and Trump and Elon Musk and all these people to come forward and implement those policies even faster, even more aggressively,
Yeah.
because yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, just as an example, the deportation policy that Trump had, and people lost their mind. I remember like 2018 or something when Trump was in office. People were losing their mind that Trump was separating families at the border and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And then Biden came into power, and guess what? He did not change the policy. So um, again, you have like the Aufschrei, the oh my
Mhm.
God, he's doing this, but through just Trump always moving the left right what's it called compass to the right, you
Yeah.
always have this, oh, he did it and now we're doing. And what we're seeing also right now, this has a very good projection on Germany, is like, for example, the Trump border wall. At
Mhm.
first everybody was like, oh, Trump border wall, this is so shitty, this is not a good thing, this is not a good thing. And now we have Democrats saying like, there, I think there was some guy saying that said, yeah, but I will not, that voted for the wall. They were like, I will not vote against good policy, which means the wall is good policy now to Democrats.
Right.
Um, and this means that, oh, Trump, you were right about these violent migrants that were coming across the border, and this is a problem that we need to deal with right now through implementing your genius idea of a
Mhm.
border wall. The same projection can be made onto Germany, where we've had uh, I think 2 years ago, the AfD proposed the anti-Semitism resolution, for example, and it got shut down because it was AfD. And now the anti-Semitism resolution that passed was literally the same anti-Semitism resolution. They just changed the most racist words to l- a little bit less racist words, but it does not matter because the policy is the racist one. You can put whatever words on it. You can call it butterfly. Um, it's still a disastrous policy, and this is the same way when supposed leftist parties or center left parties like the Green and others
Mhm.
capitulate to right wing rhetoric. We end up with more insane right wingers, then it ends up legitimizing the critique that
But
the
I
right.
think this is the important thing is even the framing, this is not a criticism of you, obviously, but the framing of capitulation to the right is actually misleading because the fact that they're capitulating to it is also a performance.
Yeah,
They have the same policies to begin with. They're just allowing someone else to kind of take the fall for it so
yeah,
they can push through those same policies. So when we talk about normalization and liberalism, it's exactly the same structure when we're talking about it within the movement and on the street, as what happens in the right and in these political parties in government. It's the same thing with the Palestine movement as it is with all of the racism and all of the insane like Islamophobia and othering that's happening in Germany right now. With every single attack, it's oh, was what was the person's last name, and like everyone in the government celebrates when they have an Arab name because then they can blame it and stoke more of this racist bigotry and hatred. Um, and everything that we do within our organizing must be oriented around that, around breaking through that normalization
yeah,
of all of these things. Because when we see uh, all of the insane shit that Trump is saying, look at the rest of the context, what's happening around him. It's not even about whether the crazy shit that he says happens. It's about whatever happens will be deliberate. People were meaning for all of the really like hateful racist shit that ends up happening to
yeah,
happen based on his rhetoric.
yeah. And it's also very planned. It's not a random occurrence. It's not the normal way of things working out. It's a deliberate, planned thing, intentionally, because both the hyper fascist Trump people and the liberals, they're both on the side of capitalists. Elon Musk made his insane jump in wealth under the liberal rule of Joe Biden, who also did tax cuts for the rich, who
Mhm.
also did deregulation, and who also did what, investment in the military industrial complex, which are like basically the three staples of US policy, inside, like, inner policy and even foreign policy. Foreign policy is just basically, can we produce more weapons? Yes. If this leads to it, yes. It's like a very easy multiple choice question. Um, I also wanted to talk about what else? Oh yeah,
Um,
the role of Arab states. Oh my God.
Wait, before we move on to that, I want to talk about just like one kind of tying this all together, just one comment is um the because all of these themes and all of these processes are just like once you see the connection, they're all so identical. Trying out what it means to push a bit to the right and then to push more and then to push more. This happened over 15 months of genocide, where these political parties would test something out, and as soon as they had normalized the bombing of hospitals and the bombing of universities
Yeah,
and of elementary schools and whatever else, then they would just do it more and more brazenly.
yeah,
And um, in building solidarity and an understanding that the meaning of collective liberation, that none of us are free till all of us are free. I think it's also a huge responsibility to recognize these patterns and what it actually means when we say like you're next, or we're all next. And this didn't just happen in Gaza. This isn't just happening with the push and towards fascism and towards the right. This is happening in the middle of those things, in the combination of those things at home. And I just want to mention Germany having begun the deportation of Palestinian Gaza genocide survivors
yeah,
from Berlin. They kidnapped them off the street, and some of our comrades are. One has literally been deported to Greece, and another um, is in jail and is awaiting deportation, illegal deportation, just done by the cops. And I think having spent all of this time demonizing Arabs and demonizing the Palestine solidarity movement here, we see exactly what Trump is threatening, but it's already happening here. And now that they have othered and separated our community so intensely and extremely from the rest of society, they're really able to do what they want to us. So I think the way that we um, resist these shifts is very decisive, which is also why we're spending all this time talking about it. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's just my
No,
last
I'm
comment.
I'm it's yeah, it- on point, because this did not. I mean, this is happening under the AFD is still not in power. This is happening right now.
Yeah.
So if you think the AFD came out of nowhere, you might want to look at the, or like this shift towards fascism came out of nowhere. You might want to take a look at the past 15 months where you were asleep and we were being beat by the cops.
Yeah, look, I
So
mean, you also want to see like people are freaking out about, okay, what if the AfD comes to power? It's not like, okay, that's the mark of structures that don't already exist. Like
yeah,
what people are terrified of under this like mythical, oh, the AfD is the worst thing that can happen to us. I'm not saying, like, by the way, I'm not even saying that that's not true. It's already happening now. Like, look around us. This has already started, but it's happening to groups that you don't really care about and to brown people. So
yeah, the continuous dehumanization affects all aspects of life.
yeah.
And I think, to be honest, I'm more of a fan of we will free ourselves, we will liberate ourselves than, yeah, we need so many white people to liberate us. You can join the movement. You're more than welcome. This is actually something that I really like. It's just that I think our job is more um, radicalizing and teaching each other in the community to how to do activism, and how what our goals are, and how to remain principled and disciplined. And only through this can we actually um, become, like, can our bubble grow, because we were talking about how our bubble grows. Only through this can our bubble really grow, because I'm more interested in mobilizing the powers that we have. If we
Yes.
if
Yes.
all Arabs, if all Arabs or migrants strike tomorrow, the German economy collapses. Like, you have no services without us, zero. So maybe check yourself before you literally wreck yourself.
But
So
this is I'm so glad you said that because this is something that I've been thinking about and meditating on so much of harnessing and appreciating and building the powers that we already have. And I know you're saying this from like a Palestinian and like Arab perspective if from people within Germany from within this particular context, but within our community that exists, we already have a really really powerful core, and I think building that out is really really important. Anyway, okay. You wanted to talk about the Arab states and normalization. Do we even want to go near Jordan
can we
about
not?
the
Oh
White
my God! Can we not talk about these? I mean, this is okay. There are two. So the Arab states in general, I will not. I will try to not generalize, because we have Yemen as well. So um, yeah. Uh,
House?
but in general, the Arab states' position is the house enslaved person. It's not the field one. It's, I think Malcolm X said this. They are very, very much happy and content with their position as the under the massa, and in the house, not in the field, uh, being or on the other side of the whip. They're content with their position there. They can be the whip, and they can uh, get the crumbs that fall off the table. That's what we have as the Arab. That's what the Arab states are, and I think a very, very important thing is if the Arab states accept in any way, shape, or form the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, like Trump is suggesting, we will have a revolution. We will have multiple revolutions. No current government official can keep their seat in power if they accept the ethnic cleansing of Palestine.
At the same time, when you see the Arab states protesting against the, or, like Egypt, with Sisi refusing to go to the White House, in protest of this ethnic cleansing policy, you also see them doing it out of their own interests. So, like, yes, they're, well, I mean, which I guess is what you're just saying. Like, they know that they won't be able to survive that. And it's not a matter of their own principles. It's not a matter of the rulers of these states necessarily believing in anything. Like Abdullah in the White House was just like, that was so horrifying.
Oh my God. I think this is a child in first class that in first grade that peed in front of everybody and has to sit in his pee and continue the whatever the performance. It was so
It
embarrassing.
was so embarrassing.
It was like I was getting secondhand embarrassment. Like it was really not.
But by the way, you saw people's reactions on Twitter. Like, people actually felt bad for him. They were trying to kind of, even people who were like, who know that, that these regimes are all completely, complicit in all this. They were a little bit trying to kind of protect, like, apologize for him because it was so embarrassing. I mean,
It was really
it
like
was really horrifying.
yeah. And I think somebody wrote on Twitter like that he did not know that it was gonna be with press, and he was like
Yeah.
he was like surprised, like what the fuck is the press doing here? Oh my god, I'm gonna have to talk in front of like because behind closed doors he can say like I don't care, you do you, whatever, but in front of the camera, I swear to God, if he had said like yes, we will accept the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, he wouldn't have had a country to go back to. Like
Yeah.
yeah. We have a question from somebody, or not a question, it's actually a comment. Like that's also something that confuses me when being exposed to right-wing talk. They seem to think that they will be able to do whatever they like to people without being fought. I don't think it will play out.
Right.
Yeah. So I think the reason right wingers don't um don't expect any resistance or any like pushback on what they say is because just as we said we exist in sort of bubbles, right wingers exist in bubbles, and these bubbles are full, like the air inside the bubble is just pure racism, like pure concentrated racism.
I
It's
mean,
so crazy.
Elon Musk couldn't tell you what the cost of a carton of milk is. He's so far removed from any, like, from any bit of humanity.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
really is choking on his own racism. I
yeah.
think that, and so is Trump. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I got excited.
No,
Please keep going.
it's okay. Listen, we always welcome Trump and Musk hate. But what I mean is why they don't expect pushback is because um, I used to do these kinds of things where I do like a 1 week dive on my own because I apparently hate myself and I like torturing myself. I used to do like a 1 week deep dive in like rabbit holes. I used to call it rabbit holes, which is something we might do for exchange later. Is like I used to go down the conspiracy theory route and like go for a week where I'm just like constantly watching these insane YouTube videos about how the earth is actually flat, but if you dig to the other side, you get to China, which is on the other side of the coin. It's so it's beyond, but that's the point. These people do not live in the same reality that any other normal, I say normal here, very, I use it very casually, but these people do not live in the same reality. It is way easier to create your own reality where you are never contested, where whatever you say is true. And oh my god, okay.
Wait.
Sorry.
Before
Yeah,
you go,
yeah, before I'm gonna jump later. Go
you're gonna
please.
jump. Okay, I was picking up on the jump because so I want to take what this person wrote and like let's ask. So what do we actually think that um Trump was meaning to uh like accomplish by saying this? Do we really think like we think he was just blowing his mouth off? We think he actually believes that and did not expect pushback from the Arab states at all. And then Garrick wrote, they don't expect pushback because of the normalization of racist policies and talking points.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, is that, I mean, is that your take? Is that your interpretation that he literally just like, he actually thinks all of this and
Wait, are we talking about the ethnic cleansing of Gaza?
yeah,
The
yeah.
Oh no, I don't think he's smart enough to be this racist. Uh, I, I know it sounds weird, but he is not. This is a straight up uh, Benjamin Netanyahu policy. He was there when it was suggested. He was there and he was like, um,
Yeah, but do you think that he was like proposing this with an actual kind of like he thinks that it will work, or was it
"Oh,
calculated to
no. He definitely thinks it will work, and the reason why he thinks it will work because, as I said, these people are not used to pushbacks. He's surrounded himself uh, intentionally with yes men who apparently later become no men and write books about it. But in general, he surrounds himself with yes men, and what ends up happening is um, you only need to plant the idea in his head, and you can claim he and as long as he can claim it's his idea, you can plant it in his head. And what happened, I think, in my opinion, is Trump, as an insane narcissist, which he is, and also a pathological liar, but that's a different topic, um, was kind of okay. If you tell a narcissistic pathological liar two things, you can be the greatest president in American history if you solve the Middle East, and you solve it by being a real estate agent.
yeah.
This is like the guy was like losing his mind of joy. This is in his mind. He was like, yes, I will be better than George Washington.
You're right.
I will be on the $100 bill or something like something that insane. And I don't mean this lightly. So yeah, it's not easy to. That's what I said. Like he's not smart enough to be this racist. He isn't.
But then on the back end of that, I think it's interesting because for those few days when he first announced this, and then when he said uh, the resistance needs to return every single hostage by noon, that's the deadline. I mean, we were all in a bit of a state of,
Yeah,
regardless of whether it's an empty threat or whatever, like it really felt like the ceasefire. I mean, there was clearly the potential for the ceasefire to collapse. And then what actually happened was, of course, the resistance totally forcing all of their hand, because then the Arab regimes all responded with like, no, we're not actually going to play into that. And there was this huge uproar.
yeah,
Um, but for that period of time, I mean, it really felt it was very shaky and it was very scary. But ultimately, what ended up happening, I guess, based on that reaction and to this misjudgment on and this narcissism and kind of arrogance on his part, what ended up happening was even like Netanyahu and even the Israelis kind of realized, no, we're not actually going to be able to sustain this. Like, we actually do need to abide by the ceasefire.
yeah,
And I don't think they were, I mean, clearly they weren't doing it out of any kind of loyalty to the deal or to the whatever, but I think they literally just realized they they're completely cornered by the like demands of the resistance.
Yeah, yeah. Um, it's okay. I wanted to the thing I
Yeah.
wanted to skip to. Um, I have been noticing an insane trend, which is it's very negative, but it also has some positive indication in it. And this trend is the co-opting of the Palestine cause by, well, just straight up racists. Like, uh, what's her name? Candace Owens? Candace Owens?
I haven't really followed.
Yeah, the black white supremacist. Anyway, she was like with on Ben Shapiro's channel, and she was like
Right.
the token black woman who says that black people are evil, kind of thing.
Mhm.
She's like, oh, I'm actually pro Palestine, like very in a very weird way. And we have also another person who was kind of kind of forgotten. His name is Dan Blitzerian, and he is possibly he's a gun enthusiast, sexist dude, and he's possibly one of the worst people on this planet. And he's like, yeah, I'm very pro Palestine and stuff like that. And I'm seeing people like celebrating him, possibly because they don't know who these people are. But as like, to me, I know who they are. Like, I'm looking at them, I'm still seeing the same white supremacist black woman. Like, I'm not seeing anything different. It's just that she's saying Palestinians deserve human rights,
Right.
but black people are inherently violent. It doesn't change that she's a white supremacist. Like, you get what I mean?
Hmm.
And it's very, very negative in my opinion. I don't like that these people are co-opting. But what it also means, it indicates that um there is enough traction.
What happened?
What, are we not live?
No, we are. You just froze for a second. It
Oh.
indicates that there's a.
That there is enough traction, or there are enough people in the Palestine cause for these grifters to latch on to the movement, which means the movement is big enough for them to see it as a profitable grift.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, I
That
mean,
that wasn't what I didn't that didn't really occur to me, but you're
yeah,
completely right.
it's
Um,
it's me looking at the glass half full kind of take. But I mean, it's still horrible because these people are just insane, racist, sexist people. But yeah,
but I
it's
think we
just,
see that. I mean, it's not just insanely racist, sexist, horrific people who are grifting and who are playing these types of roles in the Palestine movement. I mean, we're seeing this more and more because it has become such a huge movement. And we had this organizing like meeting yesterday, and we heard from some really amazing Palestinian, like US based organizers. And I mean, this isn't new, but the way that they brought it up and the conversation that we had about it was very meaningful. Palestinian liberation, the cause is what they were saying is really pretty permanently on the radar.
yeah,
It can't be shut out again in the way that it has been for decades. It is on the global consciousness, and that is a result of this global movement. And the right to resist oppression and occupation is also on the global consciousness now, and that has also been normalized.
yeah,
To take normalize and normalization and kind of turn it around.
yeah,
It's not just that these atrocities have been normalized, it's also the visualization of resistance fighters and what it means to actually um, fight against those who are trying to exterminate you and
yeah,
annihilate you.
yeah,
That is, I mean, of course, you still have, it's not that that's been completely normalized, but the strides in that direction have been massive. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
absolutely massive.
Yeah, I mean, just but this is one of the huge victories of the resistance. This
Yeah.
is what um, yeah, this is what the resistance has succeeded in, is putting Palestine in the center of global activism, and specifically of like the anti-colonial struggle, and kind of helping liberals see where the end of their compassion is, like where the borders of of their empathy is.
I
Um,
have a little like quote that I read the other day that it really meant a lot to me because I think that a lot of us have gone through this, and particularly those of us who aren't Palestinian but who are very active in the movement. We hear a lot, I mean, mostly from like liberals and from people who don't want to be bothered within their daily lives. Um, you're making Palestine your whole personality. Like we've heard that a lot. I've heard that a lot,
yeah,
from my family largely. So anyway, someone wrote this and I liked it. When people say Palestine is your whole personality, what they really mean is that they're uncomfortable with how central it is to understanding the world we live in.
yeah,
Palestine is not an isolated struggle. It is a litmus test for our political and moral clarity. It is a microcosm of empire, of settler colonialism, of racial capitalism, and of the systems that crush the many to sustain the power of the few. To ignore it is to misunderstand the mechanics of oppression everywhere. So yes, Palestine is a major part of who I am because it is a mirror reflecting the world around me.
yeah, yes, 100%, like actually 100%. And this I think this is something that's important, is like specifically the question of like how family am I still on? Can you still see me?
Yeah, I can see you.
Yeah. Specifically the question of like how do I approach um anything with any degree of normalcy, like with just being everything being normal, without um without kind of projecting to the outside what the center for me is. And um it's I've like I used to get a lot of like, oh yeah, keep work and activism separate and stuff like that. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the type of person to do this. So what I did is I took stickers and I started like this giving them to people at work. And what ended up happening is I got into conversations with people who were a little bit knowledgeable, like not knowledgeable, but knew where Palestine is, and are afraid to talk about it. Sure, but my job in this case, or what I chose for me to be as a job, is I am there if you want if you want to be armed with the arguments, if you want to be armed with the knowledge, I am there. That is what I would like to do. Um, and I think this is what we should be doing. There is no separation. Work is also political. My existence in this country is a political act. So why not make it everywhere? My existence, I exist everywhere. I walk around with this chain, and people look at it and they're like, "Ah, cool chain. What is that?" I walk around with this chain, and people ask me, "What is that?" With kufiyas, I'm not just gonna keep it to myself. This is something central to me. This is something important to me. This is something that I love. And my the thing that I want to do is I want to share love. And if Palestine is how I share love, then I will share it. Yeah,
That was really beautiful. And I think that's really like that's a very, very crucial central aspect of all of this is if your existence is a political act, which it is, um, you're trying to divide your existence into a handful of different slices doesn't
yeah,
succeed in making your existence less of a political act. It only succeeds in dividing your attention and moving it elsewhere. and not talking about your existence being a political act. And in the same way, um, I mean, I'm not Palestinian, but my involvement in this cause is also a commitment to recognize and understand that everything is political, and that for my Palestinian comrades, existence is political. And yeah, I think this is a really central realization that uh, showing up complete um, is a responsibility. It's not a failure. It's really it's a great victory to be able to bring Palestine and to bring this commitment into every space that we're in.
Yeah, yeah. Um, we have a comment about, I think, yeah, about Elon. Wasn't it only a couple years ago when Elon was saying he's pro-Palestine and was going to provide satellite connections for Palestinians in Gaza or whatever?
Yeah, yeah, you're
Time,
right.
yeah,
That
yeah,
was the
time,
beginning of the genocide.
yeah. That was during the genocide.
Yes.
That time flows by, so it feels like the past year does actually feel like a couple years, but it was during the genocide, and what he did after that was he met with Netanyahu and he decided, you know what, no, nah, I'm not gonna do
Yeah.
that. Yeah, fuck it. So yeah, he took that back. um this is like, we cannot expect the richest man on the planet to save us. Like, it's like the Bill Gates Foundation liberating Africa of thirst. Like, sure, yes, you are gonna
That's
do
my
this.
favorite. People literally say, the Bill Gates Foundation is the most charitable foundation. He's given the largest amount of money. What percent of his income, what percent of his net worth has he actually given? Like 0 point fuck percent.
Yeah,
It's nothing charitable. He exploited the system, and
yeah.
now he's kind of sprinkling some bullshit on your head to make you think, what? Like, people are
It,
this
it's
stupid.
it's exactly like they take your bread and they give you the crumbs and you're supposed to be thankful. How did he get so rich? He did not get rich uh by just, I mean, listen, he can be amazing. He exploited the system that exploits billions, like actually billions of people, and millions of them in Africa, for natural resources that are used for the production of batteries, for the production of everything that Microsoft supports directly and indirectly. And yeah, this also led to a lot of poverty in those countries that he's now helping. So we're it's like a circle. It's like Germany giving food to Palestinians while at the same time giving weapons to Israel.
By the way, it's also like Germany having murdered, I mean, not just 6 million Jews, but all of the other people that they murdered in their
Yeah,
Holocaust, and then having a memorial and wanting everyone to suck them off with gratitude for it.
yeah,
Y'all are continuing to commit genocide. You don't get off the hook for committing it. I mean, the thing about the Bill Gates Foundation is that's so crazy is not that they do all of these things and then expect thanks from people, but the fact that they actually receive thanks from people.
yeah.
That's the fucking crazy part. People are actually, thank you for these crumbs.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you. Um,
Please, sir,
no,
may I have some more?
yeah, may I have some more, please? It's like, I don't know if you watch Futurama, but there was
I never
like a
did.
poor robot. Yeah, Futurama is a very good. Anyway, uh,
I think we're at the end
going
of our.
back, I wanted
Oh,
to
go.
say something about oh yeah, Scholz. So Olaf Scholz, our supreme Chancellor, and the best guy to have the best bald guy ever, like very very cool bald guy, um literally was on what's his name, Young
Yeah,
and Naive
yeah.
interview, and he was asked like, okay, so what would you do if and when the ICJ rules that it's a genocide? Like Germany, this is the first genocide that Germany has supported since the Holocaust, and since like, and he's like,
Oh yeah.
no, I will not even accept the premise of this question because it will not happen, and it will like, first off, well phrased, because it's like it's the first genocide, as if, as in like many more to come. Like what's the implication here? Yes,
Maybe next
Germany,
genocide.
maybe
I'll
next
accept it
genocide. Yeah,
next genocide.
yeah, and it's just, yeah, he said like, no, no, I don't accept the premise because uh, I am my legal analysis right now trumps the legal analysis of the highest court on the planet, because as the baldest of bald guys, I have more brain, so I can decide what's a genocide and what's not, based on just vibes or something. It's
Okay. I mean, I disrupted an Olaf Scholz event. You know this. I
yeah,
yelled in his face. You look in his eyes, and all you see is like the racism ricocheting off of the walls of his head. It's just all that's there, just like bigotry and the drive for genocide. I
yeah,
get psyched for this.
yeah. No, Olaf Scholz is, ah, I think he also lost a few brain cells when he lost those hairs. Um, yeah, and the
And on
remaining
that
ones,
note,
yeah. And on that note, we can, and the remaining ones are racist. Yeah. I don't know how long have we been on. What time is it?
65 minutes.
65 minutes. No, a little. Oh yeah. So we're over the.
We're over our hour.
Damn.
Um,
Okay. That was again very cathartic, and
and thanks for like writing in questions and
yeah,
or like comments and things. I really like it. I really like when
yeah,
people participate and react.
yeah,
Thank you to everyone who sat and listened to this. It means a lot, and it's a really, yeah, it feels like a really sacred space, and very grateful.
yeah, for real. So thank you for tuning in to this whatever, and see
This
you next
moment of
time.
righteous rage and
Yeah,
analysis.
moments of righteous rage analysis, and the roasting of Olaf Scholz's bald head.
We
Uh,
love it. All
yeah,
right. Appreciate you
so
all. Long live the
appreciate you.
resistance.